Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Fair Chase podcast. It's a bit hot for the Fair Chase guys, and it sounds like you too, Ben.
Absolutely.
I feel like it's August and it's June 18 when we're recording this, and it's slated to be in the 90s today. It was yesterday. We've got, for the foreseeable future, more 90-degree days. So, global warming, man. It's warming the place up.
Yeah, we have some dog days here. We've been doing some work here, sweating our butts off, but we're making it through.
It's all part of it. It's just before we jump into this, Ben, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Ben Shuptrine. I'm the founder of Bear Level. We've got a group of guys that are all a range of 17 now to I'm 26. So we're have a little young guns here and there. And we are from Chattanooga, Tennessee, born and raised. And it's the most southeast part of Tennessee, if everyone knows what that is. Yeah, we are a team that we love the outdoors. Not only we love the outdoors, but we cherish the moments that we have, and that's why we start recording. Is we like to look back on our memories. So that's why we started this whole thing.
Did you say you're the oldest at 26?
I am.
Man. Well, hey,
yeah.
Same.
So,
same.
Yeah. So I pretty much married into this family. So I married the farmer's daughter pretty much. And the team came along with it. So my wife's cousins are actually part of the team, and I'm the only non-Esslinger. So.
Oh, funny. So you guys just sit down one day and said, hey, we're starting this group. We're going to be the bear level.
So I'm a graphic designer. That's my full-time job, but my the side of filming came from just a passion. I just love to film. And what happened is my first time ever bow hunting. I had this buck came in, and this is the moment where you start trembling when this is for your first buck.
Yeah.
And not only was it was a regular buck, but it was a giant. It was maybe a giant for here. Probably was like the 150s, 140s.
Oh yeah.
And since it was my first buck, like I started freaking out, and I shot him, and we ended up not finding him. And the whole thing is they were like, they wouldn't believe me how big it was because I was a first time bow hunter.
Right.
And I was like, well, I wish I had that on film, and I already film at the same time. So that's where the start of, okay, like, let's just put a camera up just to put it up in a tree, and we can look back on our hunts and things like that. So I started filming, and then that was Bear Level wasn't even a thought then.
Yeah.
And I was sitting down one day at my job, and I was like, okay, like I watch YouTube constantly. Like,
oh, you do? Yeah.
I mean, it is up on my, in my office, like on the daily, hours of YouTube and hunts and videos. And I was like, okay, let's just roll with it. Let's just see if we can make a YouTube channel and start filming our memories. And I was thinking of a name, and I wanted to have almost a mascot. It was kind of an interesting idea, but I wanted it to more of a symbol. And it ended up being a bear, obviously. And I was like, okay, so what is a bear to the outdoors? Like, what is it to people in the industry? And it's a beast. It's an animal that is pretty much the beast of the outdoors. And I wanted to also kind of think of words that go along with what are we trying to do here? And that's and that there are levels to life. And I wanted to just kind of encapsulate that. So pretty much we're trying to be at a bear's level. That makes sense. And I feel like everyone in the hunting industry, and even people that love to be outside, strive to be the best they can. And a bear resembles that. So
I like it.
Yeah.
You guys got a ton of bears down there, right?
We actually do in the mountains. We get about 2 a year. We live, so if you look at the mountains, the Smoky Mountains, we're at the very bottom. So all the bears that come here are just looking for farmland just to snack on. So or to find. They kind of get lost, but
Okay.
yeah, they come here.
Mhm.
We probably get 2 to 3 a year, and then but in the mountains they're everywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
you know.
You hunt them a lot?
So that's kind of the funny part is I actually talked to a guy yesterday, and he was like, "Dude, why haven't you killed a bear?" And I was like, "No, I haven't even thought about that." It's like
Your
I don't,
name is bear level. It's you got to
yeah,
get it. Do it.
yeah. And I think if I did it, I don't know why, but I feel like I need to go somewhere because I feel like I don't know. I feel like I need to go to like Canada or something like that to kill one, or it's very hard here to kill one unless you have dogs, and
Right.
I'm not really of a dog person. I'd like to kill one with a bow, I think so, but yeah, I need to go. I need to go for it.
Do you guys bait out there much?
Uh, for bears, I don't know the law. I think you can in a certain season, but most of the hunting out here for bear are all dog driven. Um,
Okay.
I I I know in North Carolina it's a big thing because it's right across the line.
Right.
Um, but other than that, I think all of it's a dog. On the foot. So
Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. So you're mostly deer, aspiring bear, which will be epic. That will be sweet. I was looking at some of your YouTube stuff, and it was definitely fun to watch. So I got to just understand this because I've got much younger cousins,
yeah,
and they like have YouTube on all the time.
yeah,
And that's kind of different than what I'm used to, because from what I'm used to watch, like TV,
yeah,
and they're like, oh, what? We don't watch TV, we watch YouTube. And they
yeah.
like watch people play video games on there. And I don't understand, but I guess I could see, you like a YouTube hunting channel. So you just throw hunting, like you got in the background, YouTube hunting nonstop.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's cool. What's your go-to show?
So man, that's a hard one. So when I was younger, I still have the same account since I was like I think like 12 or
Jeez.
16.
Okay.
I don't know. So so when I was younger, I was like subscribe. Like these guys are
Yeah.
awesome. Subscribe. Um, so it's funny. I've grown up with seeing these channels grow. Like there's some channels that are on my list that
Yeah.
have been, I was their subscriber at 1,000, and now
Right.
they're 200,000. So I just name a couple. I mean, I'm a fly fisherman at heart. At first I was a fly fisherman, and then I was bow hunter.
Nice.
So there's a crew called the Wildfly Productions, and they are from North Carolina native. His name is Scotty, and he not only influenced me to do YouTube, but the film he does and the storytelling is insane. If you're a
I'll
hunter,
check that out. I'm
if,
new to fly fishing, man. I'm
if
like
you're
trying to learn as much as I can.
yeah, but if you love those films, like it's all fly fishing, but at the same time, I try to tell people it's like fly fishing is hunting. It's the
Yeah.
same. It's a way of hunting, but the way they tell stories and the way Scotty directs it is it's unbelievable. So that's one I kind of grew up with, and then when I got into bow hunting, obviously Chris B was on there, and he was a good film influencer, and then I also grew up with Heartland Bow Hunter. They've been around for a
Yeah.
while. Dude,
Yep.
Heartland's awesome. And then I guess like some Seek One, some other. I love my favorite channels are the ones that tell the story without trying to force it down people's throats.
Yeah.
And they're the film is what is what engages people. So
Well, and obviously also like the Fair Chase channel. I mean, obviously.
there you go. Chase
I know it's like felt like a foregone conclusion, but
well,
yeah.
I'll be honest. When I got into the whole social media gig and I got a fall from you guys, I was like, what? I was like, no way. So
Yeah, I mean, I've been, so for people who are listening, I've learned about these guys, Ben and his crew, because of the work you guys do with 2.0,
yeah.
And it's funny, our last or one of the most recent guests we've had is Kurt, who I also met through 2.0. So that's been a cool way to like connect with guys that I would not have ever talked to before. So, totally cool to have you here. And like I said, just always interested, like where people watch, their stuff. Because when I was that age, and I'm not that much, I'm 36, so about 10 years, I guess. That's a little bit older.
Yeah.
But I was like right on the edge. What's that?
So we both have beards. It's okay.
That's right. That's all that matters. Yeah. But it was right at the switch between network TV and YouTube. And so, like, right when I was starting to watch or listen even to podcasts, and I've talked about this on this podcast a lot, like, I was, podcasts were a new thing, and I had moved out to New Jersey for grad school. And so I was extremely homesick and hadn't been out, like, in the woods in a long time, and not nearly as much as I used to be. I was in the class a lot, doing homework a lot or whatever. But I started to listen to podcasts then, and started to watch like hunting media on YouTube. And this was probably 2010 and 11.
Yeah.
So it was but for me, it was I'm like, man, Wired to Hunt. Like, we've had Mark on the podcast.
Yeah, love him.
Yeah, it's like, this guy's from Michigan. He actually, we kind of almost ran in very similar circles. We're roughly the same age, So I followed him, and what was the, Cameron Haynes suddenly out of nowhere. I learned about him, and all these things. So it was just funny because, right on that switch between network TV and YouTube, totally different beasts. But now it's like most people I talk to about hunting, it's like, oh, I watch my media or whatever, my hunting stuff on YouTube mostly, and I do the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting. It might look like my hunting, I guess, hobby / career is, pretty long, but I really got into bow hunting like maybe 6 years ago.
Oh, really?
Like, really, like, that's when I really was head down in it. The boys that the other teammates, they've killed deer that I will never, I might never catch up to them. In the youngest, he's killed. You talk about loads of inches. I mean, it is like, it's incredible what they do. They obviously go out to Kansas every year because that's a lot different than Tennessee, but yeah, but the passion came about 6 years ago. So, but
I like that.
Yeah.
I'm known for, actually, loads of inches was my nickname in high school. Weirdly enough, that's weird.
Yeah, that came out a little weird, but we're gonna run with it.
I don't know there's a lot of jokes that can be made there. So no, and I can appreciate, actually. So you mentioned other teammates. Like, how big is this bear level crew?
So we've got Eli, which is the youngest. He's 17. He just turned 17. He acts like a 30-year-old. He was kind of the run and gun guy last year and the year before that, and we hang out a lot. And then there's Seth, which is the middle kid. They're both at college right now, UT, Reed and Seth, and Reed's the oldest. Seth's 18 and Reed's 21, and then I'm 26. So they right now are kind of in a busy stage where they're in college, and we're trying to do as much as we can with the film side. But that's why we're looking for someone that could be creative with the team, kind of like another Ben. So that's where we're at right now, and the reason why we're doing that is I talk about the Wildfly guys and the Heartland Bowhunter guys. We're moving into full film productions. It's not going to be like your regular YouTube video, like catch, clean, cook. Like,
yeah,
it's going to be more into like what I'm passionate about, and that's really like this, not the storytelling, but not forcing down people's throats. And that might be going somewhere and doing a story, or that might be collabing with another team, things like that. So.
That's what. So is that like being pulled more to large full length films? Like, is that you just like the story and you like to kind of dive deep?
I don't know what it is about watching a full film or full short film. I would say, and I say short, 30 minutes or 45 minutes. But I think a full film, kind of like you guys with the moose hunt, like that was a production that in the bear hunt. That was a production that you started somewhere, you got there, and you're there with the videographer.
Mhm.
Like it's instead of like skipping to, you're in the tree stand, like you kill a doe and then it's
Yeah.
like really kind of like it's out like random. I really um like almost putting the person in there and making them feel like they're there. I think that's the biggest thing about these films is and they're on like I have like a little TV right here and
Yeah.
um I'll just run through some like I'll start with like Heartland or whatever or you guys are and it will literally skip the how YouTube works is it'll skip to another film that you haven't seen before.
Yeah.
And I'll be working right here and I'll be like, who the heck is that? And I'll look and it's a guy that nobody, he doesn't have many subscribers and he's putting out these films that are amazing.
Yeah.
So that's where that's where all the heart comes from.
Yeah, I like that. And it's tougher. Well, at least we found it to be tougher to do like a deer film versus going out west or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, just because, I mean, first of all, there's been a trillion billion deer films made. And so it's like, how do you find a new angle?
It's just whitetail, 160 inch. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. And I'm just not typically the guy that's out there shooting a 160-inch whitetail, living in Michigan. But that is interesting because it's hard to make movement. It's hard to find an arc sometimes where it's like, how do you keep the people watching engaged when you're, it's like, oh, in a tree stand again. It's like, you don't want to skip from climbing up to shooting and like you want a middle part. That can be tricky.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that. And that's kind of like that's what we're trying to focus on is like, we're not trying to be like, okay, like let's go kill an aoudad because we know that's going to get a bunch of views. Like, whatever. We want to be like, we want to do real hunting. And I feel like that's what a fair chase does too, is like you watch it and it's not like rehearsed. Like for instance, like you went on the bear hunt, like you weren't successful. Like,
thanks for rubbing it in.
That is hunting. And that was a film that was still entertaining and still like, I was there with y'all. But I mean, that's how many times people go hunt and they don't pull the tag. So
that was terrifying. That was our first full actual film that we did.
Yeah.
And we really were trying to kill one because we felt like quite a bit of pressure to actually make it happen.
I mean, that was the most respectful point is like I think you passed, didn't you?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that right there. I was like, dude, like that might be cooler than killing a bear. Like, honestly.
Because, I
know I didn't feel that, but
Yeah. No, I totally
didn't feel
get
that during then, but that I feel like, okay, so that's almost like, I'm trying to analogy. That's almost like, okay, you've got two bucks in a field. One's 5 years old and one is like a year old. And like, you've got the year-old shot.
Yeah.
I feel like that, like this, I feel like killing something for just like that reason would be, it wouldn't feel, you wouldn't feel good.
I know. No, you're right. No, and that was it. It's what I remember, like, in the chaos of it, and every hunter has had this with something at some point in your life. You're like, well, and it's like for us, I think
too. So
yeah. Well, and for mine, it was like for a while, Jared was not by me, so I'm like by myself, and I'm like, and I didn't even have the camera guy with me for that part. We had one camera guy for two of us, which was challenging, but I just remember like that day that I had been sitting out there earlier on, I had another sow and cub like come 15 yards, really? I think it came into 12 yards. All of a sudden I'm sitting there and I'm eating lunch on a log and I'm glassing up on this hillside and I'm kind of up in this mountain a little bit. And I just heard like a and like we're at a spot where you could technically take a boat to a trail, and some people, I guess, hike it. We were pretty early, and it's like no one was out there. And so I'm like, man, like somebody's already hiking out here. Like that's wild that I'm here and I'm bumping into somebody. And sure enough, this sow and cub pass right downwind of me, get my scent. Clearly hadn't seen people before, I guess, or something. And right when right when she picked up my scent, stopped and like came right like toward me, like, what is that smell? It was more curious, not trying to, mess me up, just like, what's the
Really
deal?
figuring out what you are.
Came right up to me really close, and I'm like, hey there. We put a little clip of that at the very end of our film. I'm like, hey,
Yeah, yeah,
um, but yeah, saw that other bear come by and
yeah,
didn't shoot it. But no,
yeah.
no, filming is hard. Filming is stressful. But
It
it's
is very hard.
yeah,
That's most of the videos when I watch, whether it be videos or just films or whatever. But when you get a kill shot on film, or like even most of the videos like of not getting blown out, or like
right.
I'm so impressed. Like I don't think people realize. Well, if people want to realize, take a
Yeah,
camera, take a big Sony camera up in a tree and see if you can get a deer to not look at it. Like
yeah.
it is even with the camo. Like it's so hard. Um, so
It's hard to shoot one without a camera.
yeah,
I struggle just to kill one anyways. I have a hard enough time there. So then you throw a camera guy in, and usually, camera guys are not always like the biggest hunters. So they're like,
yeah.
you're like the whole time kind of telling
And
him what to do, and you're doing your own thing, and
there's
they're,
more sand on the ground, and
yep. Yeah,
yeah,
it's stressful, and it's like, for us, when we're doing these, it's like we've got partners and we need to deliver things, and they're expecting, and then the people that watch need to be entertained, and it's very
it's a full
fun.
time job.
Yeah, it's very fun, and it's very tiring, but it's definitely not easy. But it's so cool. I love it just because
Yeah,
we talk about this a lot, but I love telling hunting stories, and I love hearing and watching hunting stories. I have hunting on all the time,
yeah,
and I just like to see what people are up to, what it looks like, with how they're doing something.
yeah.
Um,
And
I
maybe
just
they're doing something different that you're not, or I learn more from people's stories than ever. And I think that might be why I love YouTube so much. Is like I'll see somebody do something different. I'm like, huh, I wonder if that
yeah
would work in Tennessee. So actually, that's a good story. So last year when I was chasing zits, that's our bear level buck target last year, which is the biggest deer, the biggest whitetail in this. I would say this pretty good mileage area of this is Bradley County.
okay
Um, and I'm not saying like he was a giant, but he was a giant for here.
yeah yeah
Um, and I can't remember exactly what video it was, but uh, I remember someone saying like, "Oh, if you see him fighting on the ground, like it's time to start rattling or anything like that." And here in Tennessee, like yes, you can rattle them in, um, but you like it's almost like there's a perfect time to do it, and if you don't do it,
yeah
nothing's gonna happen. But if you do it, you could blow them out. Like it's just
oh yeah, totally know what you mean.
yeah. And I remember coming home from Alabama from an appointment we had, and I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna hunt tonight. Like I only have 2 hours when I get home, and I remember seeing a buck on one of my trail cameras fighting another buck, and I was like, oh, that would be cool. Like I remember seeing a video like just go for it, get aggressive, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go for the gold right here and see if I can get aggressive with zits. So I literally just posted up right where I knew that he was bedding,
Yeah
and when I'd say like I hit the horns together like a Iowa bow hunter,
yeah
I
yeah
was like I'm saying I was making the biggest racket possible. I was going for it. I didn't care because I had already had um, three times I've seen him, and I was super frustrated anyway. So
might as well.
I was banging them together, and I'm like, I'm kidding. I'm not kidding you. I was in the tree for 5 minutes, and he
Really?
comes sprinting across a creek right where I knew he was going to come from, right up to my stand, 10 yards. He was looking in the opposite field because he thought the fight was happening behind me.
Yeah
And obviously he didn't give me a perfect shot. He was straight on to me. And as soon as he turned, I shot him, but it hit him like when I shot, he was already turning. It was just one of those moments where it hits all brisket
yeah
and
oh
it's
you
all
hit it.
muscle. And but he's alive today, confirmed. So uh,
Oof.
it is that when I say bow hunting and filming is hard, it that's where that's my biggest story of like how hard it is to, well, not one, figure the deer out, but also film it. So
Well, you're filming, and for that type of scenario too, you're like, it's about as unpredictable as it gets. Like you don't
you don't know where
you
they're coming from. You don't. I
yeah.
mean,
You just touch your antlers together and hope they don't see you doing it, and then
yeah,
you don't know where they're running out from.
yeah,
Well, but if you do, you're right. Like if you do time it right and you do get aggressive, I've seen very similar things. Like I'll see bucks chase it in the middle of the day. Even like a couple of years ago, it was into gun season here, and
yeah,
I had my bow. My gun was up north, and I was like, well, I'm still gonna hunt. I'll put some orange on and just give it a go. And I'm like,
yeah,
I see on my trail camera midday a buck cruising by, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna head out there, and like it's the rut, and it's gun season now, and in
yeah.
Michigan, when gun season rolls around, like usually things kind of shut down, and it was public land, so I'm like, all right, I'm going for broke,
Mm-hmm.
went right in there. I didn't even bring a saddle stuff or anything. I was just with my bow on
Mm-hmm.
the ground with some antlers, and a same deal. I rattled hard. The thing where you're on the ground and you're breaking branches and you're
Rolling around.
yeah. And I look up and like I see him kind of come this way. I just see tines kind of moving. I'm like, holy cow! It's a river bottom that floods and then
Yeah,
empties out. And so all the trees like 4 feet up have like a water line on them, right?
yeah,
So I'm looking on the water line, I see tines go by. I'm like, I can't believe that worked.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. That, and your heart's going crazy,
well,
right?
you're like and I'm on the ground, and like I see him, and I'm like, I have nowhere to hide at this point. I don't know why I rattled without a place to hide. I just
Yeah,
was like, let's see what happens.
yeah,
So he disappears, and then I kind of again rattle again, and I'm not thinking like, hey, set up in a good spot. And sure enough, he circled around and literally came like directly at me. Like,
yeah.
you're shaking like crazy. Can't
Wait,
believe
was
this.
this in the snow?
This was not. No, this was.
I remember you killed one like this. I think.
Oh yeah, this year I killed one in the
Yeah, that was
snow.
so sick. Yeah.
Yeah, dude,
Go ahead.
I literally that one. You want to talk about getting to like kind of aggressive? It was like, oh, it's not even. It's after sun up, but it's during the rut. It's like I think it was November 1. It was the only time I hunted in the snow. I think all year. It was the only time we had snow here, which is weird. But it's like I literally am just like, well, I'm gonna go out. I got a few hours before work. Might as well, whatever.
Yeah.
And like sure enough, come over a hill. And he's just rubbing a tree like 20 yards away. So I'm
Yeah.
like, well, see if he gets a little closer, and I shot him at like 10, 12 yards on the ground.
That's
But like you said, all these things happen where it's like, I don't know, you get a little aggressive, you just throw a Hail Mary, you see what happens. If it doesn't work, you learn something and you had fun anyways,
I tend to get really, and the guys know this too. Is one, I get super excited when something happens.
Yeah.
But like if first day of turkey, I was freaking out. I was like, "Look, there's a turkey!" Like, of course there is. Like, we just called
Yeah.
him from a tree. But I get really like I'm more emotionally attached to hunting now that like I almost get so frustrated that I forget like why I'm doing it. And that's like my goal this year is to not get in that space.
Yeah.
Um, and that's when I see like I get frustrated, I start like, okay, like you're sleeping here, I'm gonna go where exactly where you're gonna go sleep. Like I shouldn't be doing that,
Yeah.
And which it worked out once, but I think this year like I'm really gonna focus on like okay, like we know like we have data that he's come through here this time of year,
Yeah. This
Um,
is private land, right?
It's all private. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where I hunt is private. We hunt some public. But here, like, I'm not saying like this private land's hard, but
Yeah.
it is so pressured that, and that's why it's so hard to kill a deer like Zitz last year is everybody that surrounds this farm and the farms that we lease, like it, I mean, it is almost like sniper towers,
Yeah. Sure.
like
Yep.
they're just monitoring like what, and I'm not saying I'm not telltale on anybody, but they're during bow season, rifle shots everywhere.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It is. I'm not. I get flustered because of how much work we put in, but it's bad. And so,
Well, that's like that also kind of dictates like how hard you go after them. If I have a couple private spots,
Yeah.
and those I'm usually like a little bit less like aggressive because
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I feel like you've got time and,
Yeah.
less pressure. But for public land, like the moment that I have any chance of shooting
Yeah.
or any idea, it's like I'm going straight in there. And like, if it sucks, I'll just not go there for a while and then I'll come back later and usually it'll be fine again,
Exactly. Yeah.
But I grew up and learned, my dad hunted, but I had an uncle that was very into hunting and he was extremely cautious, like very cautious, and kind of, for good and bad, made me always feel like when I was in the woods, I'm like walking on eggshells and like every step I'm kind of ruining everything that I take. And there is some truth to that, but for me at least, it kind of made it less fun because it's like, I'm not hunting, I'm just being careful in the woods.
Yeah.
And I sucks.
Yeah. Nothing happens. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, the more I've switched to just going after it and not worrying too much about it, like I do much better and I have way more fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. That's so true. I remember, I didn't, my whole bow hunting, I told you that 6 years ago, like that was kind of like where I hunted before that, but I was really like, okay, this is my passion now.
Yeah.
And that the first hunt where where I didn't have the buck on film, like that was the day, like everything changed.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I was wondering why all these bow hunters were, like so freaking out when they were in a tree stand, like watching YouTube. No wonder.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
He's coming in right next to you, and what are you gonna do? I mean, it was, dude. I remember when he came in. I was always told, like, draw back before he sees you. Dude, I was drawn back for like 30 seconds before he.
That's a long time. Yeah,
I was like,
feel every second.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I learned, and now, like, I'm actually a seasoned, like, actually hunter that actually, we can do some stuff now instead of trying to just wing it. But
I'll still, when I have a buck or really any deer walk out, especially at the beginning of the year, I have always the feeling like I can't believe I pulled it off. I can't believe there's a deer this close to me.
I freak out. I freak out, and I don't. So I used to shake a lot. I don't shake as much anymore unless I shoot one. But internally, dude, my brain is like, doing this. It is, and it's almost like blacking out. Like if it's when that moment when Zitz came in across the creek, I thought I was like in another like I don't even remember like almost all of it. It's just like little shots because I almost envisioned it was going to happen. Like it was like I had this little spot and between two trees where I've seen him cross before this creek. And I was like, that would be so cool. Like if he came across that creek and did this. And when that happened, like it was almost like it was like a different world. Like it was crazy.
Yeah.
And that's why I do it every day. It's just, it is mind blowing what these animals do. And, I just love it so much.
OnX is the title sponsor of our podcast here at the Fair Chase, and it's a must-have app for all of us who love to explore the outdoors. Whether you're hunting or hiking or fly fishing, OnX gives you detailed, accurate maps right at your fingertips. With property boundaries, topographical features, and trail data, you'll always know where you are and where you're headed. You'll also likely be able to figure out where that big buck is headed to. Plus, their offline maps mean you're covered even in the most remote locations. OnX is the ultimate tool for outdoor navigation, making every adventure safer and more enjoyable. Download OnX today and explore with confidence. Well, when they come in, I mean, actually, your brain like goes into a threat response, like you're in an extreme stressful scenario, which is why like a lot of guys will be like, it's like I blacked out. I hardly remember shooting, and then it happened. And it's like, well, that's actually because your brain does shut down when you're stressed out that bad.
It definitely does.
Yeah, parts of your brain, will shut down. And so it's like, which is why practicing so much in the off season, to me at least, it's like, well, if my brain shuts down, at least my reptilian brain still knows how to shoot a bow, if I've done it enough.
That is exactly why I shoot every day. And it's not because like, oh, like I'm Cam Hands and I want to shoot 100 arrows a day because it's because I want to be the best bow hunter I can be at the best or the worst stressful moments.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter like what's going on in my brain. Like hopefully my muscle memory kicks in, you know.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. It's just like prepare for it and hopefully it goes well. So wait, you're telling me it's 90 some degrees out. Are you shooting today in that crappy heat?
Well, we have to go to the bow shop later today, but because we're getting we're getting new strings on our bows. But yeah, I mean, in the evening it's good, but I mean, other than that, you know, it's probably for like an hour in the evening.
Yeah.
I try to, you know, I haven't been the best in the past, but
well, you guys down south are like tougher with heat than we are in Michigan. Like once it gets hot for us, we melt up here.
It's bad here. I don't care. I mean, I've lived here my whole life, but once spring ends, once turkey season ends, I just want the whole summer to skip and just be October.
So once it hits June, for some reason my mind's like, oh, you're almost to fall. Yeah. I don't know what it is. I'm like, oh, you're almost there, and it's like, no, you've got like a long time, you know.
And the worst has come. I mean, July and August are gonna be even worse. So
sweaty trail camp.
It's tough on our crops too. What were you saying?
I was saying like that just makes me think of sweaty trail camera checking. You know, when I think of July, it's like sweating down. Yeah, gosh. The worst. Say that again.
I wonder what they think of us. Like you go out there and check a trail cam and you got sweat everywhere on a plant. Like they go and smell. Like, do you think? Like, I feel like they just think like, oh, a dumb move, dude. Like,
some salty, sweaty dude out here, you know.
Yeah, I almost like. I talked to a guy the other day. He was like, he's been hunting for, you know, just one of those seasoned hunters that, you know, you get all this education from. And he was like, dude, I like getting trail cam pictures more than hunting. And I was like, it's like, really? He's like, yeah, dude, I've killed so many bucks, and like nowadays, like it's almost like the trail cam pictures are cooler than the hunt. I was like, I hope I never go through that.
Same. I would like to keep the hunt part good. Although I do love a trail camera picture when it comes out.
I get so excited.
The best. Yeah, we just had
go ahead.
We just had Greg from Tacticam on, and like I feel like half the time I just want to tell him how much I loved the notification on my phone. I actually I put one out in like 4 hours later, 5 hours later, had something come by and I'm like, oh dude, that's a bear, you know, and it looks just like a bear. I'm like, heck yeah. In Michigan, they come from up north, you know, and they're in where one of where our cabin is, but it's not like you don't see them a lot. Like they're new into the area. And so we've seen them lately, and actually the last week we've seen them. There have been 2 sightings of a mom and cubs, but this day I'm like, oh man, I put my camera out. Sweet, there's a bear on camera. I'm like, sweet. So for Tacticams, you can hit request video or whatever.
We're Tacticam too, so yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. So I'm like, sweet, boom. You know, I'm just refreshing, waiting for it. Finally, it comes in. It's just a raccoon. It's just like, it's just the way it had been sitting. You couldn't see the tail, and it looked just like a thick bear, you know. Yeah. And then, sure enough, it was just a raccoon, and it was like, oh, now you got to go get the my night gun out and do some predator control.
I'm about to do the same thing. So just a couple weeks ago, Tennessee made it where you can actually hunt coyotes at night.
You couldn't? Yeah.
No, but people did.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say.
I'm not saying that I never did that. I've never killed a coyote in Tennessee, believe it or not. But they finally figured it out. Like there's so many predators out there now that they actually have a season for it. So it's now till like the end of July or something like that.
No, yeah, I'm looking here.
That's where their pup season is. Where they're taking food back to their pups.
Yeah, because okay, so it was determined in April in Johnson City.
That's north of us.
And that'll open up and it'll run through the second Sunday. So first Saturday in June and through the second Sunday in August. Yeah. We actually had the opposite thing happen here, where for the pupping whatever season or whatever that is, they shut it down here in Michigan. So now we normally it was closed. It was open all year. You could hunt at night all year.
Yeah.
And randomly, it was shut down like weirdly, fast with no real explanation. And actually, we've talked a lot internally about it. We should probably do a podcast on it because it's like
weird. It's weird. Like I've ran cams for a while here, and I'd get 1 to 2 coyotes maybe a season.
Yeah.
Now I'm telling you, right now, I've gotten probably 4 today.
Really,
it is that bad. I mean, I got a team that is coming probably this next week or the next week after this. That's gonna be we're gonna see if we can put them down a little bit and they've got all the fancy thermal scopes and stuff like that. So
yeah, those things are awesome.
I just can't afford one.
That's why we have Joe on the team. We got the third member of our team. We're starting to build up our thermal stuff, but yeah, Joe has all the stuff.
By the way, that's funny you say we talk about Joe. When I was watching films and stuff like that, he's one of the films that really got me started too. Is his caribou hunt?
Yeah,
that was one of the coolest things. I remember seeing that. I was like, dude, I've got to do this.
You do need to do it.
The way he got up there and he rented the U-Haul and I was like, dude, that is so sick. Like he literally rented a U-Haul to go hunt, and it was like a 2-seater or something like that. And but yeah, that film if I could put top 10 memorable films, like he's in the top 10.
That's it's a great film. They did a great job on that. But that hunt too is, if anybody wants a DIY amazing adventure, go and drive the Hall Road. Bring your bow or go 5 miles in and take your rifle. I'll do the rifle next time.
So it's funny you say that. Is since that video, as soon as I watched that video, I was like, I'm doing this. And I'm a planner, and I look at maps and I daily. Like I'm like, okay, like this is what I'm gonna do 3 years later, or whatever. Since that video, I have planned out a trip. I mean, not the exact route he did or anything like that, but like a trip down that road that you're talking about.
Yes.
And I have like all the public freezers tagged. I have 3 contacts now in Alaska that are going to tell me like where the caribous are, because I heard that like they come in at a certain time. Yeah. But there's certain times that are like even better, like even 10 days after the season. Like when it's not as hot and they're moving around even more. Yeah. So, but you've done it before.
Yeah, I did it 2 or 3 years ago. I actually took my wife and my daughter out. And so we did like a week. And
what a memory that would be.
She was 9. And so going in, I'm like, is this like child endangerment? Am I going to get in trouble for this? Because we spent a week down south and did all the stuff. We went whale watching and we did the iceberg tour and all that stuff and saw amazing things. But then we, you rent this, what was it called? I can't remember where we got it from. Anyways, this giant truck, and ours was named Keats, so we'll still talk about our truck.
A pickup truck?
Yeah, like a F-350, like a big truck.
Diesel, probably. Yeah.
No, and we hop in, we drive. I mean, it takes forever even to get to the road, but yeah, we spent a week-ish at least, just basically driving, and I had all the stuff to camp outside of the truck, but it was just so much easier because it was always wet. To like the girls could sleep on the bench seats long ways because they're not tall enough where they have enough room that, and I would sleep in the bed of the truck, and like you just kind of hunt and hang out during the day and like walk, and then it never really gets dark, so you can hunt. Like I remember most days it'd be like, well, it's like 12:30 here, which means it's like way middle of the night at home. Yeah. And I guess I'll just call it a day now. It's like not really because you have to, but it's like, oh, I'm just kind of tired. But we hit it during a pretty hot time where lots of caribou were crossing that road. And so we saw thousands. I saw thousands of caribou. Yeah. They're insane. They're an insane animal.
I think that's my biggest, like, okay, other than like, I haven't planned out to a T in my opinion, but I think that's my biggest concern is like what if you just go up there and you just don't see them? Like,
Yeah. Mhm.
you spend all that money going to Alaska, you don't see them, And I've been to Alaska twice now for salmon, but but I've always wanted to go up there, man. It's definitely on my list. I'm having a baby in October, so we'll see
Oh
where
boy.
that
Yeah.
goes.
Well, have your baby grow up to be 9, and then take her or him on this trip, and I'll give you all the pointers.
Yeah,
No, we did it, and like ever since that trip, we'll do 3 or so weeks of camping, like a camping trip for 3 or so weeks a year. And my daughter is like pretty much every time is disappointed now for not in Alaska, which is like it's going to be hard to compete with Alaska at this point. Wherever you go, it's not that.
What a piece of land, man. I mean,
but for the coyote stuff, we had our shutdown. So at end of July, I think it pops back up. What was weird for us was, and this is kind of like a strategy, like an anti-hunter strategy, where they'll find a group of hunter, or maybe a subgroup of hunters that are against something in hunting, and they'll fund this small group to get something pushed. And so the way that happened in Michigan was, I believe it was hound hunters in the UP. And hound hunters in the UP, for whatever reason, were against, a group of them were against hunting coyotes during the pupping season or whatever. They got well funded and were able to pass this, at this meeting, this pretty significant change to hunting rights here in Michigan without, really any open forum or people knowing too much about it. They say it's an open forum, but if you don't really know about it, how open is it? And so it was just like one day we heard, oh, by the way, in 2 weeks your season is closed. It's like, what? And so kind of a common strategy is like you find that weak link within kind of the hunting community. An anti-hunting group comes in with some money.
That's scary to me because it'd be hard for Tennessee, but you could get any species taken out then.
Yeah. Yep. So it's a thing, and it does point to like hunting community does definitely need to stick together, and like you hear like guys like Clay Newcomb talking about guard the gate against predator hunting and stuff. That's how it starts. That's the gateway into it, and that's what tons of non-hunting, anti-hunting groups use as their foothold. Like they get their foot in the door by, see this hunting regulation.
They have no idea what they're talking about. They don't have any idea. They just think it's a bad thing, and they're like, it's an emotional thing. They have no idea. I'm not saying they're terrible people. I'm just saying they don't understand. They were never grown up in the outdoors, or most of them.
Well, it's just like, what do you like? When I see something like that, my first thought is like, all right, well, like, what's the why? Clearly there has to be a reason why you're shutting this thing down. Are we low on coyotes here in Michigan? Yeah. Actually, I've seen more in the last couple of years than I've ever seen. Are we wiping them out right now, where it's like unfair advantage during pupping season or whatever? You haven't produced any evidence to show that at all. And so you're just kind of saying it should be done. You don't like it. You got support. And all of a sudden it's just like one meeting, it's done without too much public explanation.
Yeah. My biggest thing is when I come across someone like that is and I come across them every so often, unless, my wife and I will be on a trip or something like that in Florida or whatever. And you got a guy that's like, oh, what do you do? And like, oh, my husband hunts or whatever. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah.
That guy?
And he hunts? That guy. And they look at me like I'm a killer.
Okay.
Like I'm a murderer almost. It's really weird. And I'm like, it's like, but then I say, but I love animals.
Yeah.
And I say, this is why I do it. And it's and when that happens, that like they're like, really? And I literally give them the whole environmental science, ninth grade lesson. Like, this is what happens when you don't do this. If you don't do this, they all go away.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the biggest issue, is like explain. And when I'm door knocking, a lot of times here in Tennessee, everybody knows that everybody hunts here. But you get that one person that's like, why would you? I love them. I feed them in my backyard. I hand feed them. Like, really? Like, I really need to be hunting here then.
Yeah, exactly. There's dumb. I'm
yeah,
in.
I hand feed them, and I'll be like, okay, this is why I do it. I try to explain it the best way I can. I'm like, okay, so those big bucks that are, with the
Like,
big antlers, like walking through your yard. She's like, yeah. It's like, okay, if you don't kill one of those in this area, and you got all these other bucks, they don't have a chance to breed with these does. And if that
right,
happens, then you don't have enough babies. And then plus after that, if you don't have enough babies, and then the coyotes take that one baby that was populated in this area, where's the
right.
population going? Like that's why we do it.
Yeah, it's like it's hard to do. But like our American model is not about the individual animal. It's like the collective animal,
Correct.
right? And
Yes.
so you're managing all of them, not just about one.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the trouble with, anthropomorphize, however you say that, making animals seem like humans, because then it feels like managing one is you're killing this
Yeah.
one thing, and it's a big deal. But it's like, well, the way that we've, biologists look at it, not just random hunters that have a self-interest in wanting to go hunting, but people who set kind of the tone for how we manage our wildlife resources are saying, we need to look at it as a whole and we need to manage it. It's just common sense.
Yeah.
But it's hard to get rid of the emotional side of that. I definitely understand.
Yeah. Exactly. They
No,
I think does and deer have like a little bit of a, I guess, I call it a baby animal phase. Like it's
yeah,
like they people think of them as their dog.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I
but
had a neighbor like that. They used to tell me, it's like, oh, I know that you're shooting this at my old house. I know you're hunting. I see you there, and that's like, I love hunting. Her husband hunted, but she's like, I do have these like 2 deer. Can you try not to shoot these 2 does or whatever, a couple does? Because
they have a tag on their ear. Yeah.
I'm like, well, I'm gonna do my best, but like I'm not so good at telling does apart from other does generally.
Yeah. My actually speaking of that later today, my goal. So I got a permission piece over here on the other side of this ridge, and I've been trying to get it for years because I've been trying to track down the owner. She didn't even live here; lives in Texas. And the neighbor is a guy I door knocked on, and he's absolutely crazy. Like when I say, when I say crazy, I probably shouldn't say that. He's an old guy. He hunts, but like I think he has a little bipolar in him
Yeah.
because like when I talk to him, like he'll start screaming at me, and then like he'll like say like, oh, like you're good to hunt here, whatever. But he thinks that I have to have permission by him to hunt this other lady's property next to him.
Sure.
Like I have to check in and say, hey man, like I'm coming today. Like that's no, because it's getting bad now. So my goal today is to go over there and not get killed, and talk to him and say this is not going to happen.
Hello, Duck.
But if you
Yeah.
don't see me again, that's what happened.
This is the evidence we need. I'll turn it over to the police, and I'll be like, "Oh, what's that weird guy?"
Yeah.
You know what you mean. People can be funny about land and permission, and even neighboring land, and they get a lot of if anybody's ever spent any time on Instagram, as probably and their hunt, they're probably seeing like.
And then today, the other day, he goes, well, if you do anything on her land, like plots and things like that, or cut some trees, I need you to come to my property and cut some trees too, and then mow the grass. And then I'm like, dude, I don't work for you. Like, no.
What's in it for me there, buddy?
Yeah, exactly. So that's the goal today. It's been a few good dog days here in Tennessee, and I'm ready for our September, man. It's gonna be.
I know. Good. I'm saying I've been filling it with a lot more fishing this year than I've done. It's like I got nervous. I need to chase something.
Do something, man.
Well, Ben, appreciate you coming on. For people that are wanting to follow, check out the stuff you're putting together, the films you're going to be working on, and see what you guys are up to. Hopefully, watch you guys shoot Zits.
His name is Zits. That's another story. Why it's called Zits, but yeah.
Where can they follow and where can they find you?
Yeah, so Instagram, it is Bear Level. It's just Bear Level, all the lowercase, obviously all lowercase, but all one word, no hyphens or anything like that. And then on YouTube, you search Bear Level. It's Bear_level. And you guys can find us there. Gonna be a lot of change here in the next couple of years, and we're really gonna start pushing things. So we're in this for the journey, man.
Wonderful. It's so fun to do. It's fun to follow. Like I said, I appreciate you coming on, taking the time out of your day to do this.
We got to get together, man. It's gonna happen.
Yeah, I love Tennessee, so I'll come down there. You come up to Michigan and shoot a couple small deer.
Hey, we don't have in my area. We don't have much, so
Cool. I love it. Well, thank you again, everybody. Thanks for listening. In just a minute, we're gonna head over to an episode that I recorded a few weeks ago with Brandon from Montana Knife. So hopefully you enjoy that as well. If you guys have questions, you want to hear us talk about something specific or whatever, best place to reach out to us is on Instagram. Just slide into our DMs, and we'll be pretty good at responding pretty quickly. So, like I said, Ben, thanks for the time, and thanks everybody. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, man. See you.
This episode is also brought to you by 2O Gear, innovators in technical hunting clothing. 2O is a newer company. It's based right here in Michigan, and whether you're hunting elk in the mountains or chasing antelope in the plains or traipsing through swamps after that ruddy buck, 2O has you covered with premium jackets and pants, merino wool layers, everything you could possibly need to stay comfortable in the woods. Their products are engineered for functionality and durability, ensuring you stay protected in any conditions. Plus, their camo is really effective. We're big fans. So don't take our word for it, though. Go to 2ogear.com and check it out. All right, we're live. Brandon, how are you?
Oh, doing great, man. Doing great. How you doing, James?
Doing really, really good. It's I woke up. I didn't know it was going to snow last night. And so we had no snow on the ground, and it's been like 70s and then, 30s here in Michigan. So back and forth, no snow. So I woke up and we had like 3 inches of snow, and it's been snowing all day. So I've just been, I've been inside. I'm not going out. I'm going to wait for that to melt before I go back outside.
It's smart. It's smart. And that's some serious snow too. So
it's not, we hardly had it all year, all winter. I haven't been able to ice fish like I like, and the snowmobiling has been non-existent. And now, once it gets to March, it's going to be like March and April snow, which blows,
I know. That's honestly the same thing up here in Montana, especially northern Montana. We didn't get the snow we typically get. We got the cold. I think we actually broke a couple records this year, -50, -60s, some wind chills under I saw some wild stats. So it was cold. It's wild. A lot of the lakes are still frozen just from that deep freeze, but I wouldn't go on anything right now after the past couple of weeks of 70 degrees.
Right. Well, it'll be interesting. I'm not sure if I'll be able to get out to Montana this year or not for bear season, but that will make, some of the stuff we do for bear a little different. It's we can go a little earlier and not have to wait for the green up or waiting for snow to melt to get to the places we like. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's actually, I know we're here to talk about knife care, but, we have a cabin up on the east side, and we were talking to one of the guys that, he kind of lives up there on the weekends. He said that none of the Grizz actually hibernated this year.
Really?
Yeah. He said they were just out full force all season long, roaming the little, it's like a gulch that all the cabins are in. He's like, nope, they never went to bed.
I feel like it's going to make for giant bears, an extra year of growth,
I think it really is.
Which I love. I love to hear that. And not that I'm hunting grizz there, but yeah, I'm sure the black bears are not sleeping the way that they normally do.
No, I don't think so.
Quick shout out to another amazing sponsor of ours, Kifaru International. If you're like us and love hunting in some of the toughest places, you know how crucial having the right gear is. Kifaru makes some of the toughest, most reliable backpacks and tents out there, and it's all made right here in America. Whether you're hunting in the backcountry or headed to your favorite deer stand, Kifaru has you covered. Keep your eyes out this year, especially as they're launching a ton of amazing new products like the new Arc frame that just came out. So next time you gear up for an adventure, make sure to check out Kifaru International. So we have Brandon, for everybody listening, and we got Brandon here, Montana Knife Company. Had him on before. If you want to hear who they are, the ethos behind the brand, all the cool stuff they do, check out that episode and give him a follow. But what I wanted to do today is, we've been getting ready for spring hunts. Been talking turkey. We had Jared do some turkey calling situations for us. We'll probably do some more of that here soon. talking e-scouting and things like that, and tons of other stuff. But today, what I wanted to talk through is, you're getting gear ready for the spring. One of the things that I've noticed is I will, at the end of the season, use a knife. This past year, I used my knife on some bears and some deer and a moose, and then you just throw it in the sheath, throw it in your backpack, and forget about it. Which means I'll take it out. It'll be gross and rusty and dull, right? And so what I wanted to take is just a few minutes with you and kind of pick your brain on just off-season knife care. Does that work?
Yeah, absolutely.
So going into the year, I'll just jump right in. So I'm sure you guys have where you can send knives in to get sharpened and everything, right? So right now when people are sending stuff in, what types of wear and tear are you like seeing most common on knives?
Yeah. So, our generation's promise is probably one of the coolest things that our company does. So we honestly looked at everyone in the knife industry, looked at their warranty and asked, like, how can we beat it?
Yeah.
And then we started actually going out of our industry to look at other warranties. And, everyone knows about the Vortex warranty. Like, it doesn't matter if your house burns down, like you can send in like the reticles and they'll send you a new scope. So that's kind of the approach that we're taking, especially with our knives. So, we really try to get people to send the knives back in, but we also do a lot of education on how to properly maintain a knife. So it's wild how few knives actually get sent back in. That's actually versus what's out there. But like we honestly see everything. We see like we also really encourage like outfitters at the end of the season, box up all of your Montana Knife Company knives. And honestly, if you have a couple extra in there too that aren't ours, like we'll still clean them up and sharpen them and all that stuff. So what we usually typically see is which are some of the funner rehabs are, if there's any like tips broken,
using that like to wrench something. And
that's the biggest thing is that, we always joke, like we didn't sell you a screwdriver. We sold you a knife. It's meant for one thing and one thing only, is for cutting. And if you need I think we have a video on how to pop an elk ivory out without using your tip.
You do. Really, I've seen it.
Yep. So, that's the biggest thing is just improper use of the knife. So causing like a broken tip, stuff like that. But the nice thing is that the people that are sharpening the knives are the ones that actually originally sharpened your knife. So they can actually go in and put an original edge on that knife without having to completely replace it. They'll actually just shape the body of the blade as close as possible. We'll send it back. If it's too bad, we don't really announce this, but we just replace it. Simple as that. We want you to have a good knife, so we'll take the handle scales off and we'll just replace that blade. But the stuff that we get back, we get some wild stuff, some really, like, you could tell they were up their elbows, just, gutting moose, and they slammed it right back in that Kydex sheath and never looked at it again.
So gross.
Guts, hair, braids, everything, all the above. We actually love seeing a well-used knife with patina and like all that stuff. Like there's someone sent us back a bear tooth, which we're actually like dropping next week. And it's our big fleshing knife. So it's a big sweeping belly. We worked with Cole Kramer on that to design that blade. And someone had it up in Alaska and they did 2,000, they did 2,000 like cows, like cattle, up in Alaska with this one knife, and it came back and it did not even resemble our knife at all.
That's amazing.
Like they were like, hey, we want to keep this knife. So we're going to start collecting some of the knives that have been like super heavily used and resharpened, and like, cause the guy was resharpening it literally every day. Yeah. So, I love that. So we kept that. Yeah. It's so cool. So we kept that knife and then we sent it back and then we sent him a new one and a couple extras too, just for being cool. And like, actually, and I don't think anyone's had a knife in their hand that long, especially an MKC knife like that guy did.
Well, knives are cool, and certain like old rifles and stuff are cool. Like when they have some dings and wear, because it's like you know, like things like a bow. Like you regularly get new bows. A compound bow, like right. It's not something you pass on. Recurves you do. Knives you do. Certain rifles, like stuff that's more handmade and stuff like that. So you see nicks and knives and little pock marks or whatever else. I feel like that almost adds to the story behind it. It's kind of cool.
It does, and you could feel it. Like, as woo-woo as it sounds, like if you pick up your grandfather's old timer, it doesn't feel like a brand new knife. There's energy in it. It's just, and honestly, when Josh and I started the business, the whole point of it was like the entire knife industry was racing to the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
Even though they weren't replaceable blades, they were selling you a $20 folder that was made in China, and with no resharpening program. So their idea was like, it's $20. Like they're not going to spend $8 to send it back. They'll just go buy a new one for 20. So you're technically just it's a disposable, replaceable knife, even though it's not a replaceable blade. And like we talked about this on the podcast, but there's only so many few things that like gentlemen hand down to their grandkids.
Yeah.
Guns, knives, like you said, possibly some art, stuff like that. But like the knives are probably the biggest one that the kids are going to fight over. Maybe an old watch, but no one's going to want your cheap, disposable blade. Just as much as like no one's going to want your iPhone 15 in 20 years.
That's right. But I made some awesome calls on this, played some great games. No.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah. And I found even like, some of my MKC knives, which have all been claimed by family and friends at this point, because it's just cool. It's got a good story. So, all right. Then walk me through this scenario. So last year we were at a bear hunt. Actually, we filmed it with you guys. We'll be rolling that out this spring with Vortex and you guys and Faro and everybody else. But we cut up cut up a bear, did a bunch of fish, stuffed it right back in our bag, went home. Now, if you are in our situation, like what are you doing when you get like, what's the next step? What should I be doing with my knife?
Yeah, so it all depends. So a lot of hunting knives, there's usually typically two types of steel. So there's a carbon steel, which a lot of our hunting knives are made out of. So it's carbon 52-100, and it is a ball bearing steel. The thing is, it is not stainless, so it has a parkerization coating on it. That helps prevent rust, but it doesn't completely eliminate the chance of rust happening. So you have to treat it like a cast iron pan. A cast iron pan will last for thousands of years if you use it and you just put a little oil on it before you put it away. But like, anyone who's used a cast iron pan, dried it in the sink and left it there, next morning you wake up, it is brown because it just rusts immediately. So that's the same thing. So if you have a carbon knife, the best thing you could honestly do is wipe a bunch of fat on it and stick it in the sheath.
Really?
And I know it sounds crazy, but like that fat is the same thing as like an oil or a WD-40. A lot of knife makers or knife people tell you to put WD-40 on type of oils. I like to stay away from that just because of the scent. It's very strong. Like that's, so for hunting knives, an olive oil, a coconut oil, or just honestly like a little bit of fat.
Bear fat, man. That's like such great fat. It would have been money. Should have done that.
I mean, literally, I should be selling tins of bear grease.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So that's the biggest thing. If you have stainless steel, just try to get it wiped off and dry as possible. Even our Magna Cut. If you go look at the tests, even in salt water, there's minimal pitting after weeks of being in salt water, but still at the end of the day, where your little edges on the bottom of your knife, like there's a bunch of little abrasions. So like that's just where air and water can mix and cause oxidation. So just getting your stainless steel as dry as possible and then putting it away. So carbon steel, put a coat of grease on it. It could even be chapstick. If you have chapstick in your bino harness, stuff like that works great. Like our knife wax, actually has like 20 different uses other than blade wax, which is really interesting. It's like, you can use it as, chapstick and like waterproof your boots, and it's like bear grease. It's the same,
Does it bring back balding, like hair? Like Jared balds, he's balding pretty bad. I've heard bear grease does that. So maybe rub a little on his dome and see what happens.
We honestly might have to try that. So those are the two biggest things. I wouldn't worry about resharpening, stuff like that. But the biggest thing is just if it's a carbon non-stainless steel blade, get a little grease on it, get a little fat on it, and then just stick it back in that sheath.
Yeah. Okay. Helpful to know.
Just make sure it's dry. Yep.
Yeah. What about storing it? So like you're done with your season. Like a lot of times for me, I've got my kill kit that I'll just kind of move from backpack to backpack. It's in my, I got like a fanny pack, a Kafaro like fanny pack right now that I'll just throw it in when I'm out. But like, I mean, is humidity going to hurt? Should I leave it outside? Should it something you bring inside? How do you store something like that?
That's a great question. So again, it goes down to the two different steels. So we, after we make a knife for the very first time, like it's a brand new knife, like we still coat it with oil while it's like sitting in transit. Like if there ever is an occurrence that causes a lot of humidity, like that will cause a blade to rust. It's just the environment, just the way it is. So if it's a carbon blade, a little bit of oil goes a long way. And I'm talking, if you just have a coat of oil on it, that thing is going to last for months and months and months. You won't have to worry about rusting or anything like that. Stainless steel, it's kind of the same thing, but just like I said, just keep it dry when you store. And then we're always really big about like, just, if you're planning on storing it, just start resharpening it. Like a sharp knife always starts at home, not in the field.
Yeah.
So, it's just always good to just have that knife at like the ready use, because like you said, a buddy calls, especially in winter here in Montana, someone's like, hey, I got cat tracks, want to come?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you weren't planning on like, hunting in February, but
right.
You were waiting for turkey or bear.
Yeah. That's cool. So you mentioned sharpening it. What kind of sharpening schedule like should people be on? Is it like at the end of the season you sharpen it, or before you go out, or throughout the year? Like what's your approach to that?
Yeah, if you just have like a regular hunting knife that you're not using as an EDC, you're not tossing it in your truck and using it, we really try to tell our guys like, hey, use it all year round. Yeah. You paid $300 for this knife. You don't need to use it just on your hunt. They're great EDCs, they're great truck knives, like all of that. So, it all depends on where the life of that blade is. So I grabbed a couple things that we recommend. If you need to really put a new edge on it, one of these sharpening stones is the best thing you could use. Because it allows you to get in there. If you have to take a little fat of the steel away, like that will allow you to do that. It'll put it on a great edge. Then what we, recommend for your pack is one of these little field sharpeners.
Oh yeah.
So, I wish this was open, but like you can literally just take the little diamond plate off. It weighs like maybe I bet you a quarter of an ounce. And that little plate, is enough to sharpen a knife for the life of that knife. Yeah. And like and then that would give you, really good touch ups in between. If you're doing a larger animal like a moose and you've hit some bone along the way and you split you split the ribs with it or anything like that, like just touching up with that little bit of a diamond is exactly what you need. And I don't even know if we're supposed to show it, but I'm going to show it anyway. So we're actually working with Worksharp. And Josh actually did. Yeah. So Josh actually designed one based off of how he likes to sharpen a knife. And we made it super lightweight, super packable. Hopefully we should have that by the end of the summer before hunting season. So that's like kind of like your answer. It's if you have a knife that is easy to resharpen, that's the biggest thing is, a lot of people come to us because, man, I'm horrible at sharpening knives. And then you look at their knife and you're like, that thing is a chunk of steel. It is a 1/4 inch thick and down on the edge. Like, so you have to picture it too. Like you have to remove all of that steel at the bottom of the blade to get it to be razor sharp again. That's kind of like our claim to fame of our knives. Like our knives are so thin, so light. That's why we say like they're not screwdrivers. Don't be trying to pop out, elk ivories out with them. They're meant to cut. And they're meant to cut forever. And that's what makes it so easy for our knives to resharpen is because they're so thin. I've even seen people resharpen our knives on the bottom of a porcelain mug.
Oh, really?
That little rough edge, with enough time, you can sit there and, pretty much sharpen anything.
I use the top of my car window, that little sandy spot on the top or whatever that is, the gritty.
Yeah, it's the same exact thing. Yeah.
I feel like maybe you gave me that tip and I forgot who, maybe it was you. I'm like out there, I'm like, man, all right, just rubbing it on the top of the window. What degree? What's your degree for a hunting knife of the angle?
It all depends on the blade. So we always say around 17 because we have a very, very like shallow blade. So you can go 17 on ours. Just fill it by hand. It depends. Like if you want to put a little bit more of a chisel on it, you can kind of, up that angle, but 17 is a safe degree. And a lot of these sharpeners are going to have that degree right there. So you just match what that is.
That
so you
seems
just
cool.
kind of so you get a feeling of that. And, a lot of them, all of them have that. So you can kind of pick what degree. This is a 20, and then some of these ones here, like if you use for like your chef's knives and stuff like that, you can go down to like, exactly what is
very
dedicated to that
fine
knife. Yeah.
Well, and for everybody listening, basically what we're talking about is like the degree of the angle of the sharp part of the knife. And so as you can imagine, the finer or the lower that is, the sharper it is, but also the less durable. So you're kind of looking for that balance between durability and reuse and also sharpness. So like a kitchen knife oftentimes can be really fine. You can get a really fine cut with that, or maybe like a fillet knife. But with like a hunting knife, you have a little bit of a stouter angle, so you can cut, but you're also like, you hit bone, you're not going to have to resharpen every single time. Am I getting that right?
Bingo. Yeah, 100%. And then also too, like on a even finer level, there's something called burr management. So burr management is, kind of picture your blade like this, and you're sharpening it and you're getting these little burrs on it. And then when you sharpen one side, they start leaning this way. And then you sharpen the other side, they lean this way. So what you have to do is, if you take it to like what you would say like a razor's edge, there'd be no burr. As a hunter, you actually want burr because it acts like little saw teeth. So when you're cutting that hide, it's cutting and catching. It's just not sliding on like the hair. It sounds counterintuitive, but like that's also why so many people cut themselves with their knives, and why the cuts are usually so bad is because that knife has these little microscopic bobs on it that kind of catches that skin and just starts digging. And I know, but like that's like what you want when you're field dressing and fleshing out animals, is like you want it to dig and cut.
So if anybody's listening and has seen we put out a moose film and cut up a moose, everything else, you'll see clips of me interviewing and like talking like this, and I have on my thumb tape, and like I had glued my thumb together, taped it. I still have this, like it's on this thumb, it's like this long of just I'm cutting, and the moose is just huge, and like I'm known to be a little bit like liberal with my knife policy. I'm like Edward Scissorhands and stuff going everywhere. And you'll be able to see just like wrap on my hand. And it's funny, I've got a scar there. It's like my whole up to the knuckle, like the whole end of my thumb just split it wide open back there and bled like crazy.
Yeah.
So I can attest to, it'll cut up your hand. MKC knives will definitely do that. Any sharp knife will, but this was one of your guys's. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a couple funny pieces of content that's floating around that it's photos of like a hand, like a bloody hand holding a knife, like, and it looks like it's from the antelope, but it was actually from me.
yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
I like the workshop stuff. Sharp stuff. So we do Secret Santa in my family, and I had my dad this year. And I may have selfishly gotten him like the bigger work sharp, stuff, and like instantly ran all my knives through it. It's like, oh, here's your gift. And like, just so happened I had all my knives with me, sharpened them all up. It's a sweet way to do it. Mine's the electric one. So you throw it on there and you just hardly do anything. It's like dummy proof. But, to your point, going into before having talked to you and kind of learned about knives, I just assumed I was a bad sharpener. Like I was just bad at it. But I had been working with, like you said, these giant chunks of, like a big chunk of steel, and like you said, you're working stuff, you're working material away to get it sharp. And like I remember thinking like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but I am taking forever, and literally it feels like nothing is different about this blade until you showed me, kind of the way.
Right. And Josh obviously has some amazing like 20-minute tutorials on YouTube of like how a master bladesmith sharpens his knives and stuff like that. Anyone that's just in the field or just semi interested about this topic, go watch those videos. They're on our blog or our YouTube channel. Just Google Josh Smith, how to sharpen a knife, and it's eye-opening because he does a lot of stuff backwards versus how most people do it, and just like how he does it, and like it's really cool to watch. And God, when he sharpens a knife, I've seen him that he could sharpen a spoon. I swear to God.
Yeah. Yeah. When you got, I mean, I've watched most of your videos at this point because, once we talked, got knives, got using them. My guide in British Columbia was like, I didn't know, but like super into knives. And so, we talked the entire time, and I came home, watched all your videos. So I've gotten more into it. And it's really like, it's just, there's different parts of hunting that as I get older, I'm learning, like little nuances, things like knife care. In the past, I'd just bring it to the hardware store and have them sharpen it up for me. And it was always like, when I'd get it back, it was like chewed up a blade, and it was just kind of a mess, when I was done. So it's like, I hate this. There's gotta be a better way.
Yeah. You really have to watch, any type of the belts, even the work sharp belts and stuff like that, like, because you could really go through a lot of steel really quick. That's the one nice thing about a stone, is that like you really have to purposely mess up to really do damage on a knife that you can't like fix.
Yeah. Yep. I have seen that. And like I got one back, and like my whole, like the blade from the hardware store, the blade had like a U in it. Like it took out like a chunk of it. I'm like, the 16-year-old kid behind the desk that I gave my knife to, he doesn't know what he's doing. And of course he's just saying, yes, it's an after school job for this dude, and so it was just funny that had happened. We got in touch, and then kind of since then I've been more and more just understanding how to take care of knives. Cause like we've talked about podcasts a lot, but what's great about having guys like you on, and what's great about hunting in general, is there's like no end to the things you can learn, and do. Yeah. And so it's just like learning new things. That's just so fun.
No, I couldn't agree more.
So, I appreciate you taking the time today. Like I said, want to just have just time with you to help people prepare for spring. We're getting ready for bear and turkey, and sharp knives are important for turkey too, man. You want to get as much meat out of that bird as you can, and treat it well. So for folks that want to follow along for, the different knives that you're putting out and want to see some of those videos you mentioned and things like that, where can they go?
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, the best place is montanaknifecompany.com. We have a field notes section that has, breakdowns of all of this stuff, but then also too, like anywhere social media, it's all Montana Knife Company, for YouTube and, Instagram, Facebook, and like I said, and honestly, like if you have any questions, even if you're not an MKC knife owner, just DM us. Like we have the best customer service team in the industry that's just here to like help educate people on what a good knife is, and like help people understand more about like, the knife industry. And like you said, it's just there's a whole rabbit hole that's just knives that you can just dive down. And like our guys just love talking about that stuff all day long.
Yeah, so fun, so helpful. You guys have been so great with that kind of thing. So, yeah, I mean, Brandon, thank you again for joining, and everybody go check it out. If you have questions, like you said, reach out to them. If you questions for us, never feel like you can't ask. I'm always happy to help how we can, or at least point in the right direction. So, everybody have a good week. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you again soon.